Okay. So I'm going to quickly orient us around a case. And you can, if you have your document in front of you, you can kind of follow the columns. This is a little bit more dynamic than that. This is, can you see it well enough, this genogram? I'm going to point at things while I talk about them so we get both tools. This is a family that showed up. Well, I met them very recently. The whole family is presenting, and the household has kind of a dotted line around it. This 17-year-old and 14-year-old are 50% time with this family unit. So they are part of it, but also separate from it. So they're children of this dad and an ex-wife. The family that presented with the most conflict is this 4-person unit. And while there is issue between the 14-year-old brother and the 10-year-old brother, primarily these are the folks who are trying to solve things. So who I had in my office first was dad, mom, daughter, and son. And it was very dynamic. These kids, basically they're presenting for treatment because they think there's too much violence between them. They would like there to be less violence between them. And violence is the word they used. Everyone agrees that mom and dad fight. Mom and dad are in marriage therapy. I know dad's in individual therapy. I think mom's in individual therapy. Daughter's in individual therapy. Lots of therapy in the family. I'm not sure, but I know that he's seen a colleague of mine who typically treats high conflict couples. But she's his individual therapist, so I'm not sure how that went down, what's going on there. When I first met these two for a consult call, they were in separate rooms, and her level of agitation and nervousness was physical. She was really tentative to talk. She was like fidgety. She looked very distressed. I just met them. It was a consultation call, and I was thinking I needed to talk her down. Like I needed to do some co-regulation with her. Yesterday when they came, they sat next to each other. That seemed fine. So this is a family that is presenting. And so what I did was go ahead and use the addressing model. It's readable to you, right? It's upside down to me. Okay. And looked at the whole system. So grabbing all of the identities that are in the whole system at once. So we have all these ages, and in those ages, there's a couple that typically have more power. I wouldn't apply ageism to this age, but I would to these. So it's in the system. So ageism is a element in the system. Also adultism, because it almost always is, but also we have children and adults engaging, and there's conflict in the system, which generally means there's some adultism in place. I don't have any inborn disability, was not reported. They're described to me that they're wanting to rule out neurodivergence or rule in neurodivergence. There's a suspicion that the 10-year-old might be on the autism spectrum and that the 8-year-old might have ADHD. So those assessments are pending. We don't have that confirmed. So ableism is on the list. They're all cis male and female, so sexism and male oppression jumped on there. I wrote it out of order, so it's out of order over here. Religion, I haven't found out more about yet, so I need to check into that. My asterisk means check into that because religious oppression might be a factor. Relationship-wise, they're married, they're parenting, and there's divorce in the system. So all of those are present. I summed them up with parent oppression right now and possibly monogamism, which can affect how a marriage handles itself. I don't have, it's not in my, I'm not sure I'm interested right now, or it's necessary to find out if the couple is polyamorous or anything like that yet. But I may ask more at a parenting session. All are Caucasian, upper middle. I think they're gainfully employed attorneys. Classism might be an issue. I don't have, based on how much time we had yesterday, I didn't ask for historical information about class. So I put that as a note. I still need to find out more there. They're all straight presenting. We didn't ask any direct questions about that. So that's something that I need to keep track of. No indigenous heritage, US born. I named cis male and female. There's no discrete traumas being described to me at this point. What I'm hearing from the parents and from the kids yesterday was that there's daily conflict in the house. Like it's all, there's always there's a fight every day. There's tension every day. There's physical harm between the siblings almost every day. And interesting to me, the 10-year-old, when we were doing the genogram, all of us together, the way we chose to do it was on a big whiteboard, and all of the family members were present in the room. All were contributing to the creation of the genogram on the whiteboard. At the point that we were doing the genogram, it was the second half of the session. The 8-year-old had already twice left the space to go downstairs. It's a weird office I'm in, but it's got this downstairs, which is very accessible from the upstairs. So we can hear who's down there. And I had taken everyone and showed them around, and she figured out very quickly there's a very, very soft rug down there. So already twice in the session before the genogram, she had got elevated and took herself downstairs to calm down. And while the genogram was being created, the 10-year-old made several comments about how sharp the line, how like jagged the line between them he wanted it to be, and how sure he was that she was the cause of all the distress. So she exited as well. While she was calming down in the basement, he made clear that something missing from the genogram was the fact that his stepsister's stepfather abused her and in really inappropriate ways, he told me. So it was very important to him that that be distinguished on this. So I think that's a trauma the system is carrying as well. So from the genogram, I gathered this information. I'm making a guess at these different internalized and external oppressions. From the way that they were communicating with each other, I think adultism is very high. Ableism is also of big concern. I definitely want to find time with the parents to talk about the parent oppression in place. And ageism is showing up, and I'm going to talk to you when I flip the camera up in a second. So these 4 things are the big ones that I'm tracking for the family right now, having just talked to the parents for 20 minutes and met with them for 60.
Why not sexism and male oppression?
Right now, I'm not seeing the usual signs of the genderism that usually goes with those. I am here. I'm gonna come back to you. Dad is portraying some of the usual checkout that sometimes hetero cis men do in families, and but the daughter and the son are not really following gender norms overtly right now. So it's on my mind, but I don't think it's top of. I don't think it's the first thing. I do want to ask more questions about how the household views gender norms and practices. About the ageism, one when I'm taking that down to the core clinical issues, just based on yesterday, how many times people got dysregulated and like dad was sort of dissociated from the time he came in and sat down. Daughter is very active. The 8-year-old, super active. She was all over this office. She was elated at the stuffed animals and the puppets, and then this, can I take that over there? Is it okay if I have this here? Could I do, like, hey, I just met you, but do you think you can do a family bonding exercise today? Because I do really well with student bonding exercises at school. She was like just a whirlwind, and everyone was sort of like, not everyone, mom was orienting around daughter, like, and being concerned as usual about the parent oppression of, are my children presenting well? And I kept saying, this is great, I love this, let them be loose, just let them do what they're doing, like, if they're, and the verbal sparring between the two siblings was pretty constant. I think that so daughter is up and down and all around. And one of the times that she went to cool off in the basement, I sort of checked as she was leaving, as she was going downstairs. I was like, are you taking off to calm down? She's like, I'm very upset. And I said, do you have ideas about how you're going to calm down? I'm just going to go to the rug. Like, cool. Mom lasted about 3 minutes before she felt like she needed to follow. And I just checked with her. I was like, what are you going to do with daughter when you go down there? What's the usual? Well, I just want her to come back. And I said, it's fine with me that she's cooling down, and like, if she's not ready to come back, it's okay, she doesn't come back. And then I went and checked. I listened to the son, and it gave an opportunity for the son to tell me the reason the daughter left was that the son said, the brother said, here's what you need to know. You cannot believe anything she says. You need to only believe what my mom, my dad, and I say about a situation, because she is prone to lying. And she doesn't think she lies. She always lies. Perfect opportunity for the 8-year-old to say, that's it, I'm out, right? Like, I think she was, just right on track. I asked him more questions about that. He explained a situation that had happened that day where she pushed him into the bramble bushes, and then in the car, she squirted him with sunblock, and he just feels like a target. So then I went down to check on daughter and said, how's it going down here? And she said, I think we should just be, she just wanted to be down there. That's not what we're doing. The whole family's going to hang out together a little bit more. And she said, she's 8. I just don't know what to do. I'm like, I have to be the responsible one. She literally said, I have to be the responsible one. And it's just really hard. And I was like, that sounds like a big burden. You're the youngest and you have to be the most responsible. She said, yeah. Ableism is on the list also because the 10-year-old has type 1 diabetes. And also the stepbrother, the 14-year-old, has type 1 diabetes. And the 10-year-old was very clear with me. I will be looking at my phone during the session. And when I look at my phone, I'm checking my blood sugar. I'm not trying to be rude. Very clear. So the energy in the energy of dysregulation was like so present. It was like dad was checking out, son would just engage. Mom was kind of like trying to figure out where to be and who to help. 8-year-old was just feeling it, man. She was like, she'd come in and kind of ask me if we could do it this way and this way. And then when it didn't quite go that way, and then her brother would give her another sideways hit. Like, later on in the genogram, when she stepped out, he was saying, well, there's a lot of conflict, a lot of violence happening to me from someone who I will not name. And daughter gets up and goes downstairs, sister's like, I'm out. And I said, can you tell me more about why you won't name? He's like, well, I just think it's rude to name names. So did you You do know, though, that everyone knows who you're talking about. So it still happens, the thing you're trying to avoid. When they were dysregulated around the genogram time, I asked everyone to check in with their heart, like how fast was their heart beating. Both kids went to the wrong side of the body. And the daughter said, it's fine. And I said, do you whatever, do you have 2 hearts? Mom, did you give them 2 hearts? She's like, yeah, I gave them 2 hearts. Like, and so was working on trying to see, what do they already know about their nervous system? Is there something with their, do they have any technique with tracking body? And they didn't. So they're very dysregulated. And the 2 siblings are like, it's all about them, and it's all about what's going on with them. And the 8-year-old went downstairs, came back, like I said, several times. When I went downstairs to tidy up after they left, there's a whiteboard down there as well. And on the whiteboard, it said her brother's name, and it said, X hates me with all of his heart, which was just kind of a note to me, I think, before she took off. So she simultaneously feels like she's responsible for the well-being of the family, and that she's getting like no cooperation from anyone. She sees herself as connected to everyone, but her mom and her, like, she's like, yeah, I'm close with everyone. And her mom and her dad were like, oh no, we have friction with her. So core clinical issues. Safety is palpable right now. Like if we don't figure out how to keep them safe, feeling safe, and I think we won't be able to go much further. And it's the kind of safety of, like, it really is a bodily safety. The brother is very clearly saying, my body isn't safe around my sister. The sister is both highly affectionate and she's so articulate. She did say to me, I did push him into the brambles, but I didn't mean to push him into the brambles. My brain said, stop it, but my hands kept going. So she's dealing with a disconnect there that I named to her. Oh, that's like so hard when your brain wants to do something, but your hands aren't listening. And she said, yeah, like that summed it up for her. And I watched her do that with hugs, like aggressive hugs at her brother and her mom. Like, so physicality is huge for her. And she's needing, like mom said, she takes really strong hugs. The kid takes really strong hugs. That's sometimes what she needs. So what's underneath there, right, is they can't trust their thinking. Like the system doesn't trust its own thinking. Dad just kind of checks out like, I don't know. Mom is like trying things, but what she's trying, it comes from parent oppression. She wants to bring her kid back in so her kid looks like she's participating. And so ultimately everyone's acting at this point. I think high order is not trusting their thinking, but we're not going to be able to get to that if there's not a sense of safety in the space. Turns out dad will fully engage in improv games, which I found out, fortunately. The son explained to me that he and his father are the actors of the family, and they're likely to do quite well with the game that I set up for them. He was kind of right about that. Like mom fully participated and caught on. It's a gift giving game. I won't go into that, but they were giving imaginary gifts to each other and having to say thank you. And the 8-year-old loved it, but it wasn't moving fast enough, and she was struggling with following the sort of the practice of it. And she really wanted to put herself in a position where her brother would be forced to give her a gift, and he was not having it. And but she didn't do that till after mom did the same thing. Mom changed places because she wanted a gift from dad. So I think not trusting their thinking is high order. I think parent oppression really promotes not trusting your thinking as parents. I think that it is possible. I can see signs of potentially the 10-year-old being on the autism spectrum. I'm not going to say that for definitively after 15 minutes, because also there's a lot of tension and trauma, I think, daily conflict that could be contributing. But I know that there's things that he believes that that aren't good. Like I pointed out, like, you believe it's more polite to not name her when she's literally, you're looking at her and saying, some people cause a lot, like, so there's some not good thinking there, right? You think you're doing this kindness, but it's clearly not a kindness. She's still reacting negatively. So now, all of that to get to, what am I going to do? Like, what are the contradictions? If we go back, this is where we bring the oppression and the core clinical issue together. And the ones that I chose that I think are the places I drawn to start are parent oppression, ableism, adultism, and ageism. And that those are contributing to safety getting compromised. The internalization of the oppression of those and the external oppression that continues to exist is compromising their sense of safety. For instance, the daughter firmly believes that she really believes that she's responsible for the well-being of everybody, which is adultist and ageist, and like, it's just a huge setup for her. And it's dysregulating her and causing her to not be safe. The brother similarly takes on an adult-like role. I don't know if that's like what he has to do because the parents don't do it. But dad had very little to say, but the son had a lot to say to inform me about what was needed. So I think he has his own adultism of taking on a parentified role. And it's putting him in a precarious, unsafe position because he is inadvertently aggravating his sister, who then enacts it against him. So it's not safe for him to be in that role either. And neither of the parents have figured out how to interrupt the patterns between the kids. So they kind of have an energy at this point of sort of throwing up their hands and like, I don't know, and they just let the kids act it out, which again, they don't trust their thinking. And as a result of that, it's unsafe. And so the first thing that I think about generally, if we're not thinking specific of this case, I think generally, if parent oppression is present for my clients, then I need to not follow oppressive patterning around parent oppression. The last thing I should be doing in session with them is like rolling my eyes or being like, are you kidding me? Why don't you do something about this? Like, that shouldn't be in my system at all, right? I need to make sure that I'm clear that when I come in, I have deep compassion for how hard it is to be parents and this time and place and this context and environment with this dynamic of kids that they just don't understand, like they just lack training. And if I look back at their genogram, I see that they both have patterns of conflicted closeness. Like, that's what was consistent. Everyone had a pattern of being close and conflicted in conflict. So it's like, this is not new to them. That like, yeah, we love each other, but we fight. That's not new to them. That's familiar. So that's a training problem. That's a historic problem. So in terms of parent oppression, as a human, I come in feeling very compassionate, looking for places where I can validate and support how hard it is to be a parent while I'm building up the connection to be able to then coach them on other ways of approaching this. Ableism, a contradiction to ableism is anti-ableism. Like that's like the easiest way to look at it. What is the opposite of ableism? Well, anti-ableism. So what do I need to do in my self as therapist and myself as human work, that when I arrive, I'm not put off by or confused by or shaming in any way towards the neurodivergence that seems to be in the room. Or even if it's not neurodivergence, it's like trauma-informed change of behavior, which is still, we would fall, that would fall under ableism, the like looking down on someone who's not as competent because they're disabled in some way. So I need to come in, I need to be ready and thoughtful. All of these things are things I sort of practice in my human existence away from being a therapist. That's just a practice I'm in of how do I clean up my ableism? How do I clean up my ageism? How do I clean up my adultism? That's like a hobby. I just think that's the way I'm going to be a good human in the world. So sometimes it's not this huge, big leap for me anymore, but the specificity of it does matter. So I have deep compassion for this 8-year-old who has a dynamic that is either born of trauma or born of neurodivergence, and she's just like the ball in the pin ball. She's just bouncing off of everyone, and she doesn't even want to, but she can't help it, and then it pisses them off, right? So how can I have compassion for that and know that she's going to need help in figuring out how her brain can learn to regulate? So you get the idea. Like I'm looking at what are the big oppressions and how do I as a person in the room show up as a contradiction? It's an emotionally corrective experience. With me, they ought not to experience parent oppression. With me, they ought not to experience ableism or adultism or ageism. Like when they're with me, I'm in charge of making sure I don't replicate those things. And that's me being a contradiction.
So like if a parent is being ableist though, and then you're being anti-ableist, how do you like navigate that so that you're not being parentally oppressing? You know what I mean? Like, like if they're being like, something is wrong with my daughter for behaving this way, I just feel like that it gets sticky with being like, no, there's not, or like, you know what I mean? I don't know. Like, how do you?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I recognize that they're battling their own internalized ableism, and that the story of ableism, like the story of all of these oppressions, is that we didn't sign up for it. It was taught to us in context and environment. So if I can go back and think somebody taught this parent to be ableist against their own kid, then I'm like bummed for that parent, right? Like I have compassion for that parent because they were taught to think this way and they were taught to be scared in this way. So that's where it starts for me. And then I'm trying to think about where is it appropriate here to invite them to change their thinking? Do we do that in a parent coaching session? Where is it appropriate to invite them to change their thinking? But at first, I'm going to look at while they're acting out ableism, it's because they don't know any better. They're going to need some training and some invitation to think differently. And how am I going to meet them on that? Yeah, I think that answers your question. Yeah. Okay. So knowing all of those things, that's the first step for me, is like, how do I show up, and and this is why we end up doing groups outside where we're like, who am I in the world and how am I being clean and conscientious about clearing out all the ableism I can whenever I can. It's a lifetime journey. So then I think about how these tend to hit people. Like, how are these messages delivered? How is ableism delivered in the world right now? How is adultism delivered in the world? How is parent oppression, and how are those delivered in the world so that I don't align with that or communicate in that same way. And then the intersection here is that all of those things are compromising these families' safety. And when safety is compromised, you know, the thinking brain's offline, according to the neuroimaging, the part of the brain that experiences curiosity is offline. Like, there's so much offline with these family members all the time that if I tried psychoeducation, if I tried anything right now, I would be likely to just set them up to fail, because they can't actually take anything in, because they're all fending for themselves. They're all like ready to battle or ready to defend. So addressing safety right away, one of the first things I did yesterday impulsively was when that kid got up and said, I'm going downstairs, I was like, yeah, do it. Go for it. Like, good job. I love it, you know? And when mom sort of had her parent oppression moment of like, oh, my kid's acting badly, I was sure to say, it's okay. I'm really fine with it, right? It really helps me to see what it looks like for you guys at home. You know, it's really helpful. And then just started eyeballing everyone on what is your style when things go down, right? That's just assessment for me. Was like, okay, this 8-year-old's pretty smart. She's like, I can't trust my hands because they do things my brain tells them not to do. I'm better if I leave. Meanwhile, she's giving evidence that she is highly kinesthetic, highly physical. So that's like a big setup for her. Like, she's going to have to figure out how to re-engage her body in some fast ways, so that when her brother inevitably is upsetting to her, she doesn't enact physically towards him. She has some great protective factors. She's very self-aware. She's very communicative. I'm a little concerned that that's because she had to, like she said, she had to, you know, be responsible for everyone. So I want everyone to feel safe. I know in my system, I have to show up as an authority, but not a mean one. Like, I have to show up like, I got you. I got you guys. Like, I'm okay, right? When the genogram thing came about, I was able to say, okay, where are you going to go? Your sister's decided she can go downstairs if she gets upset, you know, to this brother. I was like, what about you? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? You know? And he's like, I want to go downstairs. So kind and firm me said, today that's not going to fly. What do you think about the couch over there that we were just on? You know, you could just go take up that whole couch. It could be all yours. Today, downstairs doesn't fly because your sister needs it. That's been established already. We can revisit that next time, right? Any place that I could sort of like, I got you. I see you. I'm going to do what I can to help you. So because the whole system is dysregulated, like I like see myself as being very big, like imagine myself as being very big and learning as quickly as I can and I ask them outright, when you learn something new, how do you like to learn it? Like, do you like to do it physically? Do you like to read it? Do you like to hear it? Just those three alone, and they've already given, okay, I've got a visual learner, an auditory learner, and a kinesthetic learner. So like, my dynamic in the room needs to kind of grab all of those things. That's how I think, okay, I can keep you guys safe if I speak your language. And that might just be temporary, but other contradictions. So one of the big ones that seems like sometimes hard for people is that kind of authority setting. I don't know, you guys maybe have an easier time with it. It's not safe for a kid to run the show. It's just not safe for them to run the show. And in a family setting, that matters. If I were seeing that 8-year-old on her own, she'd totally run the show, right? Like, we would run all over this office. I'd just follow her cue, and and then eventually I'd start to see if I could put parameters on her that she would respect and respond to, because she's going to need to learn how to do that to not set herself up for danger in her family, the way her family is designed. But right now, the whole family, if I'm going to attend to safety, needs me to look like I am really caring about their safety, really tuned into their uniqueness and what they need, and that I'm bold enough to do it, right? That and they always give me a chance to do it. So like when mom, they had a protocol, they were going around a circle doing an activity, this like in the circle, and all of a sudden, without any indication, mom switched spots in the circle. And I was like, oh, you're changing the rules. And she was like, oh no. And then she went back to her spot. It was like, I just really want a present from my husband, and I was able to say, I don't mind rule changing as long as it's agreed upon ahead of time. How does everyone agree? And the son was like, the sister moved, was like, yeah, I want a present from my brother. And the brother is like reactive, like he's like, and I named that, like, oh, that doesn't seem safe to you. You don't seem to agree with this rule. And he said, I just don't trust her. She's not going to give me anything good. I just don't trust her. So like in that case, one of the things I'm working on is the anti-adultism for those kids. They need to know that I correct their parents. I was really grateful the mom pulled that move so that I could gently and firmly say, whoa, hey, what's going on? Like, and that tells the kids that I'm not going to follow the adultist rule of like aligning with the adults. And I'm always grateful when parents pull something and I can like gently and correct them. I'm getting to find out how change oriented they are. Are they going to take my correction? And I'm also getting to model that I got the room. Your parents can't even slide one past me, right? Like, and I could name, oh, when you change the rules without naming it, that's really confusing to everybody else. And confusion is hard. And then the daughter zipped over and started jumping up on a stool or something. And this was at the end of the session. And at that point, I was like, okay, I'm going to give this a try too. And came over and said, the stool's off limits right now. I just want to get the stool's off limits right now. We're in this group over here, but I really want, the stool's off limits right now. So we're going to go over here and okay, and I'm watching dad do the like, honey, can you wait, like he's so, the parents had just are like, what of the car sales, when the balloons that just do this, that's how defeated they are. They're just like, I don't know, stop on the stool already. So I'm working on the firmness too, not just this like loose permissiveness, because that's not going to work for this family. As I said, one-on-one, we could do a little bit of that, and at some point I might. But they gave me opportunities to come in as anti-adultist, meaning like, I'm not going to let you get yourself into trouble. I'm not going to set you up to be in danger with each other if I can help it. And I'm going to like make sure you guys are safe. And I'm trying to think of like any other things that happened yesterday, sort of intuitively. They gave themselves away right in the beginning. I mean, they were so kind of dysregulated, checked out, dissociated. Like there was so much of that happening right away that for me, it was pretty clear, pretty fast. I need to hold the safety in the room here. I need to be paying close attention. Yeah, and the thing about working with safety and anti-adultism is sometimes it's harder for therapists in the way, I find that it's harder for therapists in the way we've been trained to come in with that firmness and to recognize that it is a safety, it's necessary for safety. Like that, if the parents are not being firm, if the parents are like those balloons, those kids are unsafe. They're like and they need to know that there's an adult that's going to be like, I got you. I'm not going to let you get up on that stool right now. That's actually unsafe for you. And I don't have to negotiate that with you in the moment, but I can talk to you about it later. I was grateful that I had moments with her, like downstairs, when she was telling me I'm responsible for all these things, and I could connect with her and say that it's such a burden for you to have to do that, and to say, I'm so grateful that you trust me to talk to me about this. And I really think it's amazing that you knew to take yourself away. Like, earlier today, you couldn't control your hands. Today, you could control your feet. Just now, you could totally control your feet. So I put in enough moments that when I was like, nah, no stool, nope. She was like, tested me barely, and then took my correction. And mom too, like mom took my correction. She had a little parent oppression about it, a little bit of like shame about it, which I tried to nip in the bud. The parents are likely to get more harmed, like more irritated with me than the kids at first, because I'm not going to do the usual like aligning with the adults because they're adults sort of thing. I warned them about that before they hired me, so hopefully that's a known quantity at this point. I'm pausing now because this is very specific, but the notion is always to look at what is the opposite. So when it's time to, and opposite's not great, but what's emotionally corrective? If somebody is distressed because they can't trust their thinking, then the emotionally corrective thing is for them to trust their thinking. If they're distressed because they don't know how to use their personal power, then we're going to create an emotionally corrective experience where they learn to use their personal power, or they're validated in the places where they use it well. And so I maybe went a little too specific here, but it seems sometimes easier to like really look at the whole thing together. Can you ask me questions? Yes.
Can trust be, can trust be, is trust, like I have a kid who doesn't trust his parents, and I was thinking, before I was thinking that it was about power, but now I'm wondering if it's safety, and I'm wondering if trust, if you find that trust is always about safety, or if it's always about power, or if it could be, yeah.
There's not any always about it. Like, I think that what humans need is a predictable delivery of care, and that's established in a lot of different attachment things, or studies, or whatever. But for me, it's easier to think they need a predictable delivery of care, and when they don't have a predictable delivery of care, then they try to get it, or they accept that they can't get it. So if he doesn't trust his parents, I don't know if he said he, but then it's likely he's not getting a predictable delivery of care. And so he's sort of like, then that's going to affect, is it actively a safety issue right now? Or is he trying to get care by powering over? Is he like not getting care? So he's decided, he's thinking like, I can't trust them. So it's it feels more, I'd have to ask you more questions, but I would have you lean more towards safety, assess for how he's conceptualizing his safety. To see if it's safety before like sticking with power.
Thank you.
I have a question. Yeah, I'm really intrigued by this statement of like, I can't trust my hands, because I have a lot of clients. I work with addicts. I work with a lot of clients who have ADHD, and they have anger issues because they're explosive, and their frontal lobes aren't setting them up. And so there's this like mistrust of behavior, and I'm wondering, like, would that fall in a separate category of like not trusting behavior, or do you think that falls into like a power thing of like I don't have power over myself? Or
Yeah, I think last week when we were talking, I was like, I wonder if I should add behavior to the I don't trust thinking, don't trust feeling, don't trust behaving. Like,
funny.
yeah, because it is an interesting, it is interesting how that plays out through a person. Like, oftentimes I think it lands in not trusting their thinking because of the normative idea that your brain communicates to the rest of your body. So I think it's part of the internalized ableism that they're comparing themselves to. If I were normal, I could control this. And that's a not trusting their thinking, right? The conception of self is not trustworthy because, well, normal is not trustworthy. But they've been raised in a culture where we really do promote there's a normative way of being.
Also,
So yeah,
the thing of like her having the thought of like my thinking's all good, like she trusts her thinking, but my hands are doing this. I hear that a lot. I'm screaming at my spouse, and I'm in my head saying, why am I doing this? You know, so there's like that disconnect.
Yeah. And yeah, I think I'm liking this idea of maybe teasing out behaving from thinking and feeling, because to not have it in this list of core clinical issues is sort of like replicating ableism, right? Like if our clients are verbalizing that I got it in here, it's just these guys that go wrong, then working with them on that languaging of, yeah, you can't trust your enactments, you can't trust your body, that's different from thinking and feeling.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is like live in the, like right now, I'm thinking that makes so much sense to me to bring that in as a core clinical issue so that we can meet people there in their true experience. And that's how ableism is playing out for them. These two siblings are quite a setup. Like if he's truly on the spectrum and she's truly like ADHD, there's going to be a ton of accommodating that they're going to have to learn for each other, because that the way it's designed for them right now is like it hurts him. Like his experience of her not following typical rules and just like doing the thing right is like it's an affront to him. And I believe that that's legit. Like that's how he's experiencing it. And if she truly is like having to learn how to navigate, like my thinking's right, but my acting is not great. Those parents are going to have to learn. They have to get safe, all of them, so these parents can learn some skills about how to work uniquely with these kids. And then but right now, I believe those kids think they have to figure it out for themselves, and that's just not going to help. So I think I kind of answered your question. I think there should be a not trusting behaving, and that we can look at that and then look what would be the contradiction. So for this yesterday, if we say that was active, I don't trust my hands, then what I did to contradict that was your feet know what they're doing. Like your feet are great. They just walked you away. Like maybe we need to lean into your feet a little bit more, you know, for a while till we figure those hands out, you know. She threw herself at her brother into a hug, and I said, oh, does your family get to hug without asking? And he was like, nope. And the 8-year-old backed off of him and went to mom and did the same thing. And I was like, how about you, mom? Is that okay for you? And she's like, I don't mind the strong hug out of nowhere, but when she takes her feet off the ground and it pulls on my body, that hurts. So in that moment, it was like validating to the 8-year-old, you like hugs and your body likes that connection, and I want that to work well for you. So the impulse is trustworthy, like the follow through. We're looking for a follow through of behavior that allows the kid to get what she really wants from that hug.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's good to think about with the body and behavior. Or just right up at edging right up here to 2 o'clock. So any other burning questions? As I really do need to. I'm gonna get. Actually, I can't give you any questions right now, so you have to email me. We're gonna have 90 minutes next time, and there's 2 different ways that we could do that. What I'm leaning towards right now is to ask all of you to go away with a few weeks before I see you, and just choose a case where you're going to kind of run this framework and experiment a little bit. And then during that 90 minutes, come back with that and say, here's what I was working on. Here's what I thought, help me. Here are my very specific questions about any one of these parts of this framework about this case. And we'll just make sure there's time for each of you. I might not, Karen, maybe not you, because we get to do this plenty of other times, but the other 4 of you, I would really like you to take 15 minutes or so, to really, maybe longer, 15, 20 minutes to really make it yours, and get support. So that's how I'd like to use that time.
Great. Thank you so much, Heidi. We'll see you on the 11th.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Heidi.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.